Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Paramahamsa Parvikacharya Astaracharya Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Viṣṇu Pad Paramahamsa Parvikacharya Astaracharya Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Prabhupada. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam yurdayet nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat uttama shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, Text 3. Sukham Andriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivad Yata Dukham Ayatnataha Sukamaindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivad Yata Dukham Ayatnataha Sukamaindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivad Yata Dukham Ayatnataha Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivad Yata Dukham Ayatnataha
Sukhamayindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivat Yata Dukham Ayatnataha.
Bhakti Chad. Anyone else?
Sukham Andriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam
Yoginam
Sarvatra Labhyate Daivat
Sarvatra labhyate daivad.
Yatha dukkam atnata.
Yatha dokam yatnata. Anyone else? Okay. Sukham, happiness. Indriyakam, with reference to the material senses. Daityaha, all my dear friends born in demoniac families. Deha yogena, because of possessing a particular type of material body. Dehenam, of all embodied living entities. Sarvatra, everywhere, in any form of life. Labhyate is obtainable. Daidvat, by a superior arrangement. Yata, just as. Dukkam, unhappiness. Ayatnataha, without endeavor. Translation and purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Prahlad Maharaj continued, my dear friends born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. Purport. In the material world, in any form of life, there is some so-called happiness and so-called distress. No one invites distress in order to suffer, but still it comes. Similarly, even if we do not endeavor to obtain the advantages of material happiness, we shall obtain them automatically. This happiness and distress are obtainable in any form of life, without endeavor. Thus, there is no need to waste time and energy fighting against distress or working very hard for happiness. Our only business in the human form of life should be to revive our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become qualified to return home, back to Godhead. Material happiness and distress come as soon as we accept a material body, regardless of what form. We cannot avoid such happiness and distress under any circumstances. The best use of human life, therefore, lies in reviving our relationship with the Supreme Lord, Viṣṇu. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Pre Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I heard in a lecture that the best alarm clock in life is purpose. And then there's different ways that people react to alarm clocks. There's people that have 10 alarm clocks. They need 10 alarm clocks to wake them up. And then there's people that when their alarm goes off, they turn it off, and then they wait for their final alarm clock. And then there's people that turn off their alarm, and then they wait a little bit more, enjoy a little bit more sleep. And then there's people that as soon as the alarm clock goes off, they get up right away. So that brings the question of, what is our purpose? Why do we wear dhotis? Why do we go out on the streets and chant? Why do we put tilak on our head? So these are nice reminders that a lot of people in the world, they have no purpose. They wake up, they want to go back to bed. I was talking to some students yesterday. I said, excuse me, what motivates you to get up in the morning? And some of them, they don't know how to answer this question. So their life has become very mechanical in such a way that they don't know why they should wake up in the morning. And Mukunda Charna Prabhu, like he was mentioning, if there is no purpose in life, then why live at all, you know? So Srila Prabhupada, he has a lot of lectures regarding happiness and distress. And I remember reading the Bhagavad Gita, there was a purport, and in which Srila Prabhupada, he writes, the happiness of wealth is enjoyable by a person who has tasted the distress of poverty. In the West, you know, most people, they're born into really good families. They don't know what the ghettos look like. They don't know what slums look like, you know. But someone who has tasted poverty, they know and they can enjoy what real wealth is. And so everyone's searching for this happiness. They want to Srila Prabhupada, he said they want to maximize happiness and they want to minimize the amount of distress. And Srila Prabhupada calls this the struggle for existence. There's a sticker here in the parking lot, and it says, existence is pain. So, like what Mukunda Charna Prabhu said, the Buddhist idea is that they want to stop existing. But Srila Prabhupada, he makes the point that if the soul is eternal, the soul must eternally be doing something. It must always be active. And I remember I was speaking to someone at the lounge last night, and they had this idea, you know, to stop nirvana, to stop all material activities, because they know that desire brings unwanted consequences. So I told him, well, you don't know the positive aspect of spiritual life. So I began telling him about the spiritual world and how we have an intimate relationship with Krishna. And somehow or other, this person agreed, you know, that does sound better than nothing. So purpose in life is very important. This is what helps us to stay in Krishna consciousness. Even in my short time of being a devotee, I've seen a few devotees come and go. And I always wondered, if Srila Prabhupada offered us this wonderful process, why do people leave? So finding purpose in Krishna consciousness is very important. We should understand the value of Krishna consciousness. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes that the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. So Prabhupada would use the word tolerate. We should learn to tolerate the distress in life, and also we should learn to tolerate the happiness that comes. We shouldn't be too jubilant when happiness comes, when good things happen. We should remember this is the mercy of Krishna. And then when bad things happen, we should understand it can be worse, you know. And the example is when a devotee gets a paper cut, or he cuts his hand, his finger. We should know that our hand should have been cut off. By the mercy of Krishna, it was a slight reaction for our misdeeds. And then Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he always emphasizes that the non-permanent of this happiness and distress, they're like the summer seasons. In due course, they come and go. Prabhupada would use the example of water. Water, in the summertime, it feels very nice, you know. It gives us pleasure and happiness. But the same water in winter, nobody wants to shower during winter. So, it's the same water, but it's due to contact with the material senses. And then I remember reading this line and it stuck with me. O sign of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So these good or bad things that are happening in life, we should tolerate them. And then Prabhupada would call these dualities. So in life, there should be balance. We shouldn't be lamenting or hankering, and we shouldn't. I've never met a devotee that felt depressed, actually. Krishna consciousness is a very wonderful process. It's a very blissful process. Raja Vidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmam Susukham Kartumaviyam. That this knowledge is the king of education, and it's the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is joyfully performed, and it is everlasting. So, Prahlad Maharaj's instructions, if it's taught in the school system, it can save a lot of people from depression, anxiety, loneliness, things like that. And one of the first instructions he says that spiritual education must be started in childhood. But even before that, before the child is even conceived, the mother should listen to discourses on spiritual topics. And what is the right time to go to school? 5 or 55? 5 years old. So if we understand that even material education should be started early, why not spiritual education? But people always make the distinction that material education is more important. But that's not the case. There was this joke. There was this boy, and he was asked many questions by his teacher. And the teacher wanted to get some indication of the IQ levels of the students. So I'll read some of those questions. The teacher asked, "In what battle did Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. die?" And the boy replied, "In his last battle." He said, "Where was the Declaration of Independence signed?" The boy said, "At the bottom of the page." He asked, so the teacher asked, "When was Mahatma Gandhi born?" The boy replied, "On his birthday." So, and then, in which state does the Ganga flow? And he said, in liquid state. And then he said, if you have 6 mangoes and you have to distribute it to 20 people, how will you do it? So the boy, he said, you make mango milkshake. That's how you distribute it. So this is today's knowledge at its finest, It's not very deep. And I've been asking people, do you know what philosophy means? I think I mentioned this in my previous class. Not many people, even the students, they don't know what philosophy means. And it's very sad, actually. So the younger generation, they have, Prabhupada would compare the school to slaughterhouses. When they come out of this materialistic education, they become agnostic. They become very skeptical about, the existence of God. Is there a reason to live? Things like that. And then they teach them these material scientific theories, right? I met someone at La Jolla Cove, and he was claiming to be a scientist. And I said, what does the word theory mean? And he said, oh, it's a fact, And I said, here, let me read it on my phone. And I said, it's a compilation of ideas. So theory just means ideas, they're not actual facts. And he was so angry that he stormed off. And so he came back and he said, that was interesting what you said about theories. So I gave him a book, Science of Self-Realization. And I said, if you like science, this book will help you to understand your identity, your spiritual identity. And then he appreciated it, and he took the book and he gave a donation. So Srila Prabhupada, he would always say, we don't use words like I think, I believe, in my opinion. We don't speculate. We quote Shastra, Sadhu, and Guru. And in this way, we have perfect knowledge, although we ourselves are imperfect. And so there's a misconception that the youth is meant for enjoyment. Little kids, they're walking around, bouncing around. Maharaj, he said, when was the last time you saw an old person skipping? So maybe in Sankirtan. See, only the devotees. So when the youth, they have this idea that it's meant for enjoyment. And then when you advance in adulthood, Your time is spent in romance, right? Fighting relationship. And then when one reaches old age, he worries, worries, and worries about bills, about my grandchildren, about this and that. But the question that arises doesn't, which is what happens at the time of death. I meet so many elder people that come to my table, and I ask them, what do you think happens at the time of death? They can't answer, or actually, they don't want to answer. And I told them, it's very intelligent to figure out maybe there is life after this life. So I give them a coming back. And in the back it says, there was a sentence that says, before it's too late, So I make them read that. And some of them, they take the book, sometimes not. But it's good to implant that seed in the mind. Maybe I should start looking for answers. And in adulthood, people pass their time in finding relationships. Mr. Right and Mrs. Right. Or Mr. and Mr. Right. So anyway, and in old age, people have no idea what to do with themselves. And the saddest thing you'll find are people in these old folks' homes, They have so much time in the world, but they don't know how to utilize it properly. When I was working at this retirement home, I asked my patients, I said, what do you think the goal of life is? And they said, the goal of life is to be with your family. And then I asked them, where is your family now? And they can't answer. So even their own family, they're too busy with their own family. This reminds me of a story. There was a person that works at the train stations, and he found this little wallet. Maybe you guys have heard of this. And inside this wallet, there was a picture of Krishna. So he said, he raised up this wallet and he said, who does this belong to? And there was this very old man, he raised his hand, he said, that's my wallet. So the ticket person, he said, maybe you can explain how is this your wallet? So the man told him, before I had a small wallet. My parents gave me this wallet. And I had a picture of my parents in it. They were the very most dear people in my life, so I always kept a picture of them. And as I grew older, I became more self-conscious, so I had a picture of my own self in my wallet. And then when I got married, my wife was in my wallet. She became the most important person in my life. And then as years go by, my children, they had kids. And then so I had a picture of my grandkids in my wallet. And then now my wife, she's no longer here. My grandkids, they're too busy. And I realized that the only real friend that I have is Krishna. And he said, only if I had kept this wallet from the very beginning, it would save me so much trouble. Loneliness, things like that. So anyway, this is a very instructive story, because we should understand that Krishna is our real best friend. He accompanies us life after life. Sometimes our friends, they don't want to go, And sometimes you have to pay someone to be your friend. There's this movie, I forgot what it was called, but it was a very wealthy person. He acquired wealth by the lottery, and he didn't really have friends, so he had to pay people to be his friend. So there's artificial friendships also. And Prabhupada would say that material happiness and distress, they're illusion. Because, for example, a child is born, and then this child is the source of happiness for the parents. But when the same child dies, it's the distress for the parents. The son is the same, but the circumstances are different. So happiness and distress, they're like that. And no one searches for distress, but it happens. Sometimes on book distribution, you'll find people say, this is the best day of my life. And I ask them why. So I found something, money, or this person spoke to me, or replied to my text message. People have pity lives, actually. They wait for a text message from someone that they have a crush on, and then when they finally get that reply, this is their This is their best moment in life. So the devotee, they don't waste time pursuing material happiness, and they don't stress the negative things in life. They become steady in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so I'll tell a few Sankirtan stories. There was a person that approached my table. He said, "Do you have weed for sale?" And I said, "No, but I have something that will get you naturally high." I heard in the old days, devotees would say that. Mm.
The drug culture is going. And they themselves were, most of them, part of it had been. And so they asked Prabhupada they could print a pamphlet, not a pamphlet, a flyer, "Stay high forever." And they were handed out to everybody, they're free, And Prabhupada said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And so under that, they printed out, handed out, and a lot of people came from that.
Mm-hmm. So I told him, "I have something that you can get high naturally." And he said, "What book do you have?" So I showed him the Bhagavad Gita. And I told him that you don't need these substances to feel happy. These are superficial and artificial means of attaining happiness. So I gave him the Bhagavad Gita, and I told him, "Do you like music?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Here, you take this book too, chant and be happy." And I can tell he wasn't a very, materially successful person. So I just asked him, "If you can give a donation, that'll be great. It'll help us to print more books." And I was surprised that he gave me $20 for the Bhagavad Gita and chant and be happy. And then he smiled and he said, "Get high naturally." He walked away. And there was this group of people, they were walking by. And this man, he came up to my table and he gave me $20. And I said, "Excuse me, what is this for?" And they said, "The other time you called me young man, and I appreciate it." So I said, "Let me speak to you for a little bit, 1 minute of your time." And so he looked back and his family waited for him. So he said, "I really appreciate that you called me young man." And I said, "You're not the body, you're the soul. And the soul is eternal, it's full of knowledge and full of bliss." So I was showing him a few verses in the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, "This is the best thing I've read so far." So I said, Probably like 60, 70 years. He was like a grandfather. So I said, "You take this book, and since you gave a donation, you can have this book and in remembrance of our conversation." He said, "Thank you, young man." He called me a young man. So that was one interaction. There was some person yesterday. I said, "Excuse me, do you like to read?" He said, "I don't know how to read." And he started laughing. I said, "I have a book with pictures." And he came back. So I said, "Let me show you these pictures, And Vijay Prabhu, he says, "This is what we call wisdom art." So I showed him changing of the body, the karma picture, and then I also showed him how an intelligent, with spiritual vision, he sees, he doesn't lament whether a dead body or a living body. And this also showed him of the picture of the yogi, he was meditating, and then the soul left his body. And I said, "This can be you like that, So he appreciated the pictures. And I said, "You take this book." And then he said, "How much does it cost to print these books?" And I said, "Most people give between $10 and $20. He said, "I'll give you $20 for this book." And then not only that, but I saw his friends. I said, "Here, you take the stack, and you give each one to your friends." So he started laughing. He said, "Pictures, And so there was this little boy and his mother yesterday at Balboa Park. And the little boy kept smiling at me and just waving at me. And then the mother said, "He never does this. For some reason, he likes you." And I said, "Maybe we were best friends in a previous life." So the mother said, "Maybe," and I asked her, "Have you ever thought about reincarnation, karma? Why are there kids born in good families? And why are there kids born in unfortunate situations?" And she said, "I thought about it." So I gave her a coming back. And I said, "I know you're, maybe busy, but we just humbly ask for a donation. You can give $1, you can give $100. And then she gave $10. And I said, maybe you can take this book also, Higher Taste. And I said, you can make wonderful meals for your child, for your son, and they're healthy and easy to make, and they're in the mode of goodness. And I said, the type of foods that we eat, it affects the consciousness. And she understood that was true. So she took Coming Back and Higher Taste. There was this elder gentleman. He was on his way out of the park. So I stopped him. And I asked, do you like philosophy? He said, I like philosophy. And then he said, but I wish I have time to talk, but I have to go. I have a flight back to New York. So I said, maybe you can just give a donation then. And then he said, he looked in his wallet. He said, I don't have any small bills. And I said, it's okay. You can give that $20. It goes towards a good cause. He said, that's true. He gave $20. And then before he left, I said, do you have room for the small book, Hiding in Unnatural Happiness? He said, I think I can fit that in my suitcase. And then while he was looking at it, he said, unnatural happiness. He said, that's very interesting. And he was a very business-minded person. I can tell he was on his trip to, I don't know, maybe a conference or something. So he took the book. And then I also told him, before you go, let me give you this paperback SSR, Science of Self-Realization. I said, I read this book and it changed my life. I told him there's people that change you. There's places that change you, and then there's books that can change you. He said, that's true. And I told him, read this on your way back to New York. He said, okay. And yesterday it was very cold, very cold. I was wearing 2 sweatshirts, some sweats, wool socks, shoes, I had a beanie, I even had gloves on. It was very cold. So people were walking by, and they said, how are you in this cold weather by yourself? And I said, well, I like to distribute these books. These books, they help people understand what the goal of life is. So they stopped, and then they were looking at all of the different books. And I asked them, are you a small reader or a big reader? And she said, I'm a big reader. I said, really? So I took a stack, the 7 set, and I handed it to her. And she said, these are for me. And I said, these have your name on it. So I opened a page in the Bhagavad Gita, and it says, an intelligent person does not take delight. Do you want to say the correct translation derivative? No? Yeah. It says, an intelligent person does not take delight in, yeah. Is it 5:20? Can you use the mic?
An intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures that are derived from the contact of the senses with the sense objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of all misery and have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not delight in them.
Exactly. And I said, so this has your name on it. And she said, where's the name? I said, intelligent. And I said, you like to read? And I said, you came to my table, so that shows me that you're intelligent. So I handed her the Bhagavad Gita as well. And then she said, are these free? And I said, they're free, but if you want to give a donation, we gladly appreciate it. So she talked to her friend, and she said, I couldn't hear. She gave $20, and her friend gave her another $20. So it's $40 in total. And I said, let me give you another stack. I said, you can give this to your friends. And then all of their friends, they were very happy that they got books also. And I told them that these books are not ordinary books. They're full of transcendental knowledge. And I said, these books help us to become happy all the time. And I asked her, do you like to be happy? She said, of course. And I said, see, you're intelligent, So she started laughing and giggling. And then on their way, she said, thank you for stopping us. And I said, thank you for coming to my table. And lastly, there was a young man yesterday. He was very doubtful of religion. You get those type of people sometimes. So I started going over how our senses are imperfect. We make mistakes, we have a tendency to cheat, and we become illusioned. And he said, wow, I've never heard this explanation before. And I said, not only that, but our mind can trick us. Our mind is flickering as an unsteady nature. And then he said, that's true. So I said, now what do you think? And he said, I'm open-minded now. So I gave him a Bhagavad Gita, and I said, this book, it was spoken 5,000 years ago on a battlefield. And I said, this book will help us to understand, who we are and what is our relationship with God, and how do we reawaken this relationship. And then he said, I always thought about different religions. So I said, it's okay. Srila Prabhupada, he said, whatever you practice, as long as it teaches you love of God, then it's perfect. He said, I like that. And I said, yeah, we're not, whatever you're practicing, but you can also add more knowledge. And then he asked, how much for this book? I said, how much do you have in your wallet? So we both started laughing. He said, you're good. I said, I told him, I love distributing these books. I like talking to people. So he reached in his backpack and he gave a nice donation. And I said, maybe you can come by on Thursdays, including tonight. We have this wonderful event. We do guided meditation, a wisdom talk, and a vegan meal. Everything's free and everyone's welcome. And he said, I'm not free this tonight, but maybe I'll come next Thursday. So I said, wonderful. And I said, bring a friend and bring a family. They'll really, really enjoy the program. So he shook my hand and he said, tendency to cheat. That's the last thing he said. Because he knew that, the type of people that he listened, whatever podcast, they knew that there was some motive behind it. So thank you for your time and attention. Are there any questions or comments?
Sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah, you were mentioning this story of the man who lost his wallet, and he, over the course of his life, he had different pictures, and at one particular stage, he had a picture of himself. Mm. And it's true. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, like, oh, did the guy really have a picture of himself? But just, I mean, you see some people, like recently I saw someone, I was on a flight, and this person, she had a picture of herself, like just herself. There wasn't her boyfriend, wasn't their husband, wasn't her family. It was just a picture of herself on her home screen. Mm-hmm. It's so people, I know it sounds kind of bizarre, but I mean, because to us it sounds like that's insane. Like you literally have a picture of yourself on your home screen. I mean, but anyway, so but the guy luckily, anyways, he replaced it with a picture of Krishna later. But I also, now I don't know why this person would be exaggerating, but because he's kind of a scientific guy. Of course, people exaggerate, but I don't know why he would be exaggerating. But he told me this story. He was on business somewhere, and he was at a restaurant, and there was it was like kind of like a convention. So there's one. This is in India. And this fellow's Indian, and there was one man, another Indian guy, and the guy was there from Bengal. And in Bengal they like fish. Unless they're devotees. Devotees don't like fish. Right, but
No, we like fish, that's why we don't eat them.
Yeah, sorry. I say devotees don't like eating fish. So there was this man, one man from wherever he was in India, the other man was from Bengal. So they're all like sitting at a restaurant or whatever, and apparently that particular restaurant didn't have any fish. So the guy was really, disturbed about it. And I don't know, somehow or other, the fellow who was not the Bengali, he looked at this Bengali, then, I don't know, the guy went up to use the bathroom or something, or he was like looking at his wall or whatever, and then this fellow, he looked at this Bengali guy's wallet, and in the wallet there was a picture of fish, like a fish, And, he asked him about it. He said, why do you have this? Like, it's kind of, weird, kind of bizarre. The guy said, well, I'm really attached to fish, and sometimes if I can't get it somewhere, I'm just like looking at it. At least I could just like look at it. Anyways, Oh, I don't know. It's just kind of, but I mean, people are really. It's true. They're really. I mean, it sounds bizarre. I mean, and again, I don't know why this guy would be exaggerating, but like in Bengal, it's a big thing. Like if you become a devotee in Bengal, they'll say, "Wow, how did you do that?" Like not become a devotee, but specifically, how did you give up fish? It's like a huge thing, actually. My friend, he was saying that there's these people, they became devotees, but you know they had whatever kind of simple people, whatever, they had kind of misconceptions. But he went to their home and one time, and they're offering fish to Krishna, you know, and then he said, "Oh, you know, you can't do that." You know. Anyway, so just this idea of it, it's amazing how attached, you know, people could become to just really strange, you could say ideas like keeping a picture of yourself on the wall or just different things. You know, it's quite amazing. So just a comment.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other?
Krishna, thank you for the class. I want to ask you how you understand this, that in purport Srila Prabhupada speaks that happiness and distress comes natural way. We don't need some efforts to do. And how we can understand it and how to utilize.
Well, from what I read, yeah, just like nobody looks for pain and suffering, but sometimes it comes. So naturally, happiness also comes. And the devotees, I remember when I read that, it saved me so much time, you know. Why chase happiness? When that is going to happen on its own accord according to our activities, like what Srila Prabhupada said. But I'm not sure if, do you have an answer to it?
Well, I don't want to cut you off. But you find that this is like part of a called a syllogism, you know, a logical little argument that has, because of this, now this. And I think that'll come in the next verse. Mm-hmm. But more famous than this one is in the 5th chapter, 1st canto, probably we quote it all the time. You know, Narada Muni is speaking to Vyasadeva, encouraging him to write the Bhagavatam. There's very important verses there. So one of them goes like this, Tasyaiva heto prayate kovido. Nalabhyate yad brahmatam upayata. Talabhyate dukkam sukham kalena sarvata gabhira rangasa. I don't know, some of you may know this verse. So he's saying, therefore, one should strive for that which you cannot get going up and down the universe in the material world. As far as material happiness is going to come, exactly this. But just as you know, pleasure comes automatically without you trying it, or just as pain comes automatically, the pleasure will come on it. It's programmed in. Mm-hmm. And it plays out according to time and your karma like that. So this concept is very important. It says it's just a total waste of time. It's not, and it's not the sense pleasure, it's the happiness. In other words, you could be as poor as anything, but be happy. This is like in Bengal. I think they say that Bangladesh is a place where people have the highest happiness quotient, more than any of the developed countries, you know, because they have strong family life and so many things like that. So, but they don't have so many material things, very minimal. So you're struggling to get these material things, but it's just, you're putting your effort in the wrong direction. You should put your effort in coming to the stage of, you know, eternal, unlimited happiness. So that's what this is all about. And he's explaining this, all these instructions. You don't, probably no one knows this, but unless maybe Ramapati. But back in the day, in the early 80s, I was living in Philadelphia, and they had a little Gurukul there. And at that point, this book had come out, you know, a 7th canto. It was already out, but in this Gurukul, since this is Prahlad teaching his classmates, he said, oh, these, you know, instructions are good for kids, because this is taught by a kid to other kids, you know, whatever. So anyway, I was teaching them these verses. That's what I was doing. I would go up every morning, and right after Bhagavatam class, and I would teach a half an hour with these kids. And this was part of the curriculum. All the teachings of Prahlad to his friends. because they felt, well, look, they'll be able to relate to it more. But I remember this verse and the others that are coming after it. They're fantastic verses. And this concept that it's a waste of time is foolish to struggle very hard for material happiness, because it's already plugged in from your past life. You're going to get a certain amount of misery, a certain amount of happiness. So strive for that thing which is beyond, which you haven't experienced for so many billions of years, which is a state of real peace and happiness which comes from Krishna consciousness.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your Sankirtan stories. There was one story in particular that I've been thinking about, and it's the one with the young but old man. And it's about leaving a good impression each time with devotees or non-devotees, no matter, what the interaction's like. Always try to leave a good impression, because you don't know down the road how future things are going to play out. So, thank you.
Thank you. And one last thing. Yeah, you're right, Balaram Prabhu. Sometimes when people take out their phone to give a donation on Venmo, you'll see their lock screen or wallpaper. And they always have a picture of themselves or with their dog. Sometimes not even of themselves, but just the dog only. I said this in a class before. There was a lady, she was wearing a shirt, and it had a picture of her dog on it. Not only that, but this dog had an effulgence. Like in the back, like Krishna has an effulgence, but this dog had an effulgence to him, I said, I need to take a picture of that. Okay. Any last questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna to all devotees. Thank you for wonderful class. Thank you, Harima.
Okay. Grant Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Get Prabhupada.